We interrupt your program to issue a severe warning for an impending emergency making its way to your area. We urge you to be watchmen of the times and to be prepared with the essential knowledge and supplies for the wake of the final hour.
Welcome to the Final Hour podcast, coming to you from the original Living Word Christian Center out of Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah.
My name is Jim Hammond. This is John Gapp. This is Lonaiah Farrell. And then we have a producer who we have a real hard time when we don't have him here,
Yes.
Dee Schrader.
The Schrader.
And so I just want to let you guys know that, the plant here is not because we think it looks good. We are...
I grew that from a baby.
If you could see this room, it's like a large closet, and we are moving. We are moving locations within the building. We moved up in life, and they gave us another location, which will make it easier, and that's why we haven't changed the plant. And if you could see it closely, it's got a lot of dust on it.
Yeah.
But want to thank our viewers and subscribers and listeners off all platforms, and please do subscribe. And also we want to say that every single one of these reports that we give are not opinion. They come from somewhere. They come from a viable news source, and if we don't mention them, you can find them on the Final Hour podcast notes that we are created for every single episode. Mm-hmm. So we want to pick up where we left off last week at the end of Revelation chapter 16. In Revelations chapters 17 and 18, we'll see Babylon being given the picture of a great harlot. And we also know that it's been historically a great city. You could say that Babylon in the Bible is the anti-Jerusalem. And many scholars believe that the devil's headquarters are established in the harlot city of Babylon. And I guess to understand Revelation chapter 17, you have to understand everything the Bible says about Babylon. And I'm going to try to do that in a brief rundown here. But to understand about the harlot riding the beast in chapter 17 of Revelation, you have to understand the backdrop on Babylon. What is the origin of Babylon? To find that, you have to go back to when humanity spoke only one language. Now, at this time, what we're about to read in the Bible, all these people had come from Noah. After that ark hit land, and after he and his family got off the ark, and years down the line, as people, started to, what's the word, procreate? Is that what you call that?
Yeah.
They started to congregate in this place, and it went from a village into a major city, and it was called the land of Shinar, or Shinar, Shinar, which is located on a really big plain. And that's when they really start to focus on this famous tower. Genesis 11:3-9, they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." So they had brick for stone and slime for mortar. And they said, "Come, let us build us a city and a tower whose top reaches into the sky. And let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. And now nothing they have imagined they can do will be impossible for them." So the Lord's saying, they can build a tower into, in essence, the lower heavens. He says, "Come, let us go down there, confound, mix up, confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from that place upon the face of the whole earth, and they gave up building the city. Therefore, the name of it was called Babel, because there the Lord confounded the language of all the earth. And from that place, the Lord scattered them abroad upon the face of the whole earth. So you have these guys deciding to really get to heaven, more or less, into the heavens by man's effort. They're trying to get to heaven on their own terms. The other thing that they were doing is they weren't following God's will, and it was to totally spread across the earth. Right. Yep. And they were all congregating in one spot. And so as them start speaking different languages, all this takes place in a city called Babel.
Yeah.
And the definition of Babel is confusion, and eventually Babel becomes Babylon. And the leader of these people, the founder of all this, was Nimrod. Many scholars believe that Nimrod was actually the founder of a lot of the occultic religions in that part of the world. He had a wife named Semiramis, who was a high priestess of occultic idol worship. Their son, whose name was Tammuz, Tammuz, was born. They claimed he was the savior of all people. This went on for hundreds of years. The god of Tammuz, which is the son of Nimrod and Semiramis, you saw him pop up being worshipped sometimes as an idol over the centuries, and eventually you see it in Ezekiel 8:14. Then he brought me up to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there women sat weeping for Tammuz. And this said he unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? That's God addressing Ezekiel. Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. So this worship of Tammuz, he's calling an abomination. So Babylon was always heavily involved in astrology, not just the regular, study of the heavens, but more or less a type of satanic astrology. They were into mysticism, sorcery, all kinds of magic. Is it alchemy that's a form of bringing back the dead? Is alchemy?
No, necromancy.
Necromancy is what they were into. Necromancy also. Yeah. And you can see in Isaiah, it's pronouncing God's judgment on the city of Babylon. Isaiah 47:11 through 13. Therefore shall evil come upon thee. Thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee. Thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, and thou shalt not know. Stand now with thine enchantments, with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. So now we've kind of given you the backdrop of Babylon, because I feel like we need this going forward in the next the first 7 verses of Revelation 17. We're getting into the harlot here. And verse 1 of chapter 17, there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, John, saying unto me, come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So obviously she's been around since the beginning. This is a spirit, verse 3. So he carried me away into the spirit, into the wilderness. Interesting that there is a wilderness in the spirit. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads, 10 horns. Sound familiar? And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet in color, decked with gold, precious stones, pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Upon her head was the name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Interesting that every time a martyr or a saint died, it was like a shot of liquor to her because she was drunk with that from all those deaths.
Interesting.
And so we can see in the seventh bowl, the seventh bowl angel talking to John, then carrying him away into the wilderness. And while he's into the wilderness, he sees this woman in the spirit. And it seems to me as if she was dressed probably beautifully, but I'm willing to guarantee you that she was probably dressed like a harlot, right? Quite revealing. And as this scripture says, she's got a multi-headed beast that she's riding. It says she's holding a golden cup full of abominations and in the filthiness of her fornication. She's drunk with the blood of martyrs and the saints. So obviously she has something to do with all these deaths of God's people in the spirit, because that's where they're viewing her in the spirit realm. And written on her forehead is mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. Now, this title helps us identify her and what she's about. And I'm just giving you other opinions of multiple scholars here that this does not represent the city of Babylon in the physical realm, but a symbol of Babylon. Babylon usually represents a system of the world, which has to do with religion, finances, and politics. Let me tell you what happens here. And this is the opinion of a lot of people that know a lot more than me. When the church is raptured before the tribulation, in the tribulation, you will have an apostate church start to rise.
Yeah.
This is a counterfeit religion represented by Babylon. It will go after everyone who is a Christian or has become a Christian during the tribulation. We don't know exactly what they're going to believe, but I mean, obviously you have a bunch of people that are required to worship the Antichrist himself, hint, hint.
Right.
But this counterfeit religion will definitely have nothing to do with Christ or Christ crucified, and will probably cover up as best they can the second coming, which will be coming. And there will probably be a ton of satanic rituals involved honoring Satan. And as we can see the last phrase of verse 6 in John chapter 17, John marveled at looking upon this woman with great amazement. And the angel comments to him in verse 7, the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. So we've met the harlot and really what she represents, but it really gets interesting when we start talking about this beast and she's riding, and we're going to get into that beast next week because we have a lot of things we want to talk about today. Today was more or less just introducing the harlot in Revelation.
It's kind of, I mean, it's still a wild set of scriptures there.
Yes.
I mean, you're just setting it up, but there's a lot to it. And it's interesting how John goes into it after that. So it'll be exciting to look into that next week.
It really is deep because you're looking into the spirit. Obviously, this is a powerful spirit.
Yeah.
It's a very old, in my opinion, it's an old spirit. And this spirit has the ability to catch a buzz every time a Christian dies or a martyr or a Jewish person or the people of God were killed. You know, it was drunk on it in the spirit. So it says so many things.
Right. It reminds me of the things we were talking about. Like there's that abortion doctor that thinks that he gets high on abortions.
Yes.
There's the people that were saying I've had 20 abortions and I do it sad. They revel
get power
in
from the murders.
They revel in the depravity.
Right.
Wow. And it's interesting how you can see the spiritual almost mirroring the physical here.
Yeah.
If this age-old spirit is actually drunk on the deaths of opposing saints, right? That are of the Lord, and she gets drunk on it. So But with that, let's go into what's going on in the world. Interesting stuff here, Lonaiah. We got some art. They're trying to turn your children into atheists here.
Yes,
America. So you need to pay attention.
Actually, my son, who graduated high school 2 years ago, in his religion class, he went to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
One of his religion teachers was teaching atheism, and at my other kid's school, because I go to a different Catholic school, both of their religion teachers used to be atheists, and now they're Catholic, teachers. But anyways, this is from Fox News. This is an article from Fox News. Some of you might already be alerted to this. If not, House Republicans demand answers from Biden administration over grants to promote atheism worldwide. So several House Republicans are asking why this is happening. So the Republican Study Committee Chairman Jim Banks of Indiana led the letter with 14 of his GOP colleagues to President Biden, and he just said, like, why are we doing this? Because it's called Atheism and Humanism. That's what the title is called for this. So it announced a competitive process that would award grants of up to $500,000 to organizations committed to the practice and spread of atheism and humanism. What? Yeah. But it's not even in the United States that we're granting money. This is worldwide. South and Central Asia, Middle East and North Africa. I mean, the list of countries goes on and on.
Your tax dollars at work.
America.
Right.
Your tax dollars.
Your tax dollars at work.
So the Republicans pointed out that atheism and humanism are both official belief systems protected under our First Amendment rights to religious freedom, and they said they would like to know what other United States government programs supported with appropriated funds are being used to either encourage, inculcate, or disparage any official belief system. Atheism, humanism, Christianity. Yeah. It doesn't say Christian, it says Christian, Muslim or otherwise. So Banks and his colleagues wrote that it is one thing for the department to be tolerant and respectful of a wide range of belief systems and to encourage governments to respect the religious freedoms interests of their citizens.
Right.
But it is a totally other thing for them to be empowering, active, and giving funds towards these groups.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they were giving money to Christians, the outrage? No, but like, I didn't even hear about this. We got this article from two people who wrote in, which thank you to everybody who sends in articles, who sends in tips. We can't see everything. Sometimes, like, if I see something when I'm flipping through Instagram or through the news, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But if somebody else sends it to me, I'm like, okay, then they want this to be known.
And we're using some of those things today, obviously, so thank you.
Yep.
But yeah, so we have atheism being pushed by the Biden administration. So that's interesting. But on the other hand, you have a really cool story.
Well, just as the evil is rising, I believe that revival is coming. I believe the latter rain is about to fall. And, as the South African founder of the Church of Satan, and we actually played a clip of him. There's 2 minutes on YouTube.
I watched this on social media as well.
Yes.
Yeah, we had him,
cool.
and we played a clip in the services this weekend, about a 35-second clip, because Jesus showed up in a vision to him, and he was very arrogant with Jesus, is how he described it. Yeah. He was cocky with him,
right? And
Jesus flooded him with the love of God, and you've got this guy crying, making this. It went viral, and now there is a small, growing revival in South Africa. Who's that minister? We'd love to have.
Sean Fouch is what his name is, and he's doing
well-known
crusades over there. I mean, you can follow him on Instagram. Tons of people getting saved.
Yeah.
He had the police force from this town come up onto the stage and say, "You are changing this place. It's amazing to see what's happening because of your presence here."
So
praise God.
It's coming. Right?
But can I just make one comment that the satanic founder said? He just said when he was flooded with the love of God, he realized there are no boundaries. Like Jesus accepts anybody. And he said that's one thing that he dealt with in his head is, this is what I've done. Jesus won't ever accept me. But that's not true. Like Jesus showed up to him during the middle of a satanic ritual.
Right.
Like he was trying to get more power from the devil because Christianity was starting to rise in South Africa. Yeah. And he was trying to combat it.
Well,
and here we are.
One of those touch points for him was he was at was it a radio station?
Yes, and the lady.
And there was a lady, a Christian lady, refused to recoil and went and gave him a hug.
Yes.
And that opened the door.
Yeah.
Because she showed him love, even though he knew that she was a Christian.
Yeah.
And she knew that he was very much anti-Christian, and she refused to sit there, and she went and gave him a hug.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it started that whole process.
Yeah, which is
his main
to
comment,
how we should be.
Yeah.
His main comment was the love of the God. The kingdom of God is not a gated community. Is what he said.
What he said.
And with that, we've got John with the truck apocalypse out in California.
Yeah.
Because of their esteemed governor. Just a great guy out there. Great guy.
Gavin, just great stuff. I mean, California is the Canada of the United States, I guess.
It's true.
Because we started off this podcast with Truckpocalypse type situation.
Freedom Convoy.
So on AmericaFirstReport.com is where this is from. It says the California Truckers Association is warning that 70,000 independent truck owners and operators will be taken off the roads of California later this week as a draconian new law, AB 5, kicks in. Says, in addition to the direct impact on California's 70,000 owner-operators who have 7 days to cease long-standing independent businesses, the impact of taking tens of thousands of truck drivers off the road will have devastating repercussions on an already fragile supply chain, increasing costs and worsening runaway inflation. The new law passed and signed by Democrats essentially outlaws independent contractors from operating transport trucks in the state of California. So
they're taking away individuals, and they want to make them be part of the
state. Forcing them to be part of unions, which companies don't want that. So, I mean, because when it goes into effect after the U.S. Supreme Court refused to intervene last week, California will be hit with the truckpocalypse shutdown of transportation capacity. So here's why it's important. It says, while some transportation companies maintain full-time employees to operate long-haul rigs, many drivers are owner-operators who own their own trucks, who pick up contract jobs from the hundreds of shipping and transport companies that operate in California. These owner-operators pay their own taxes, they buy their own health insurance, and they cover their own fuel costs. California Democrats, however, think that the independent freedom for truckers should be criminalized, which is essentially what this new law does, since they want all drivers to be union workers.
But if
vaccinated.
And I was just going to say, and if we rewind, because you said this started we started one of our first podcasts with the Canada Freedom Convoy.
Yep.
And here again, they don't want them to have the choice.
Right.
Because a lot of that protest was they were asking the government to stop telling them what to do.
Right.
They want to be in charge of themselves. So now we see Gavin Newsom.
Yeah. And this is because, they're in charge of themselves. They can take the jobs that they want to do. They might have contracts, but they're paying their own stuff. They buy their own health care. They buy their own fuel.
Yes. And if we remember, a lot of those people, they didn't want to get vaccinated because they said, we don't need to. We're independent and it doesn't affect.
But the main point is they can control,
of course,
the amount of things being shipped, what's shipped, and you can see this, America.
Yeah.
They're slowly locking down how things are shipped, locking down transportation, and to create, I believe they're doing it on purpose, to create these shortages. We'll talk to you about Sri Lanka. I think they want us in a Sri Lanka type situation where they can lock down the government.
Right.
And lock the country down because of the chaos that's been caused.
Right.
And with that, you guys got any more points?
Well, I was going to say,
have one thing to say about you.
Because most of the shipping that comes from the Pacific, from Asia, from all of those trade partners that we are consumers of, oftentimes, all of that, or a large portion of that, comes through California. And so when the trucking is slowed down, and this is going to cut down on the amount of stuff that can come through California into the rest of the states. I mean, it is a bottleneck of supplies.
Right. Can I make one comment? Because you said that they want them to be union. Yeah. And I was reading a blog earlier this week that said the railroad union is fighting. So if the railroad union doesn't win their bid of, kind of what they're arguing over, then the railroads are going to stop, which is transportation for things.
Right. Not coincidental.
Not coincidental.
Yeah. The railroad and the trucking are all part of the diesel additive shortage that right now the U.S. has about 7 weeks of diesel additive supply, which is very, very short.
So the World Economic Forum those people, the railroads are run by people high up in the World Economic Forum. So it's not coincidental that they have figured out how to shut the railroads down completely.
And now you have the Gavin Newsom requiring all independent contractors in California to become part of.
Yep, he's a winner. He's a winner.
I believe he's under a recall now too, though.
Again, because last time there was a recall, he won again. Yeah. So won.
Yes. Be careful. Be careful.
We just said he won with quotes.
Yes. And with that, we've got this is coming here. Lonaiah, you've got a small piece on the Biden administration and their emergency powers.
Yes. Speaking of the World Economic Forum and people that work for it, this is a precursor to this. But the WHO chief, the
World Health Organization,
warns of rising infections and deaths from the latest COVID wave. Okay, which I don't know if anybody's heard, but that has caused Biden administration to again extend the COVID public health emergency order. Shocker, right?
Fauci was talking yesterday and today. Like, I think it's going to be a bad fall.
Yep. So they're already, putting that out there to tell people. So they renewed. So it expires tomorrow, the one that was signed in January of 2020. So they are extending that, which takes effect tomorrow. So the reason they're extending it is because this gives people, this is what they're saying, right? This is their main reason. Telehealth, therapist, and vaccine assistance at a lower cost. So this declaration also unlocks special funds that are deployed for pandemic response. Can I read one thing? I actually looked up the New York Times. I just looked what's happening with the pandemic relief funds because I listened to a podcast this week.
It's a little bit deeper.
Yes, that said 10% of the COVID funds actually went to fight COVID. So I just Googled it, and New York Times had a pandemic relief treaty funds of the $5 trillion we have spent so far, okay? $1.8 trillion went towards unemployment benefits. Now, let's not forget, they shut the world down, and we were all locked in our houses for basically a year, right? It started with a 2-week flatten the curve, and then it just extended. Right. So unemployment benefits, $1.7 trillion went to businesses that shut down. $80 billion of that went to airlines because they furloughed employees, okay? Right. $745 billion went to state and local aids. $70 billion of that money went to transit agencies because, they weren't allowing trains, buses, all that to run. Out of the $5 trillion, only $482 billion went to healthcare. $288 billion went to other. It just says other. That's it.
But do we really want it going to healthcare based on what they do with their healthcare?
Well, no, we don't want it going to healthcare, but you're saying that you're extending this.
But
it's a load of fluff.
It's so they can lock down the country.
Of course.
And more businesses fail. And they get a leg up. The more people that fail.
Well, in California, they're already saying they want to do mask mandates again. I don't know if anybody here has seen, but Governor Walz is saying, hey, in the fall, we're probably going to be shut down again. We're definitely going to be wearing masks again.
I shan't.
I didn't. This wave of COVID is going to be the worst one yet.
That's
right?
what they're saying.
Well, and not only all of those funds for those $5 trillion.
$5 trillion.
That $5 trillion caused and exacerbated the inflation situation that we're facing right now because it added a large percent of the actual dollars that are in the economy, right, which dilutes the value. Right. So what we're seeing on all the fronts are all manufactured issues.
Of course.
It's a fast way for them shutting the country down.
Yeah. Yes.
To run the country into the ground.
Right.
And that's the point that's what I believe. That's what I believe they want to do.
Right.
And it's really obvious looking at all these things. And with that, it doesn't surprise us, food plants, food storage places burning up all over the place. Yep. Nobody knows why.
Right.
We've got a new angle on that. John's got an article here.
So the economiccollapseblog.com, very aptly named blog.
Yes, we have read from him a few times. Yeah. Michael is great.
Michael.
The
title is Who is Behind a Series of Mysterious Explosions at Natural Gas Facilities in the United States. A pretty safe country for operating. But Michael goes on, are we under attack? Previously, I've written about a series of very strange fires that have occurred in key food production facilities in the United States this year. Authorities insist that each one of these fires was an accident, and maybe they're correct. But now the same thing is starting to happen in the energy industry. In particular, we've seen a number of mysterious explosions at natural gas facilities in the United States during the past 2 months. Of course, natural gas prices were already spiking dramatically all over the world, so this string of disasters comes at a really bad time. On Saturday, an absolutely massive explosion at a very important natural gas facility in Medford, Oklahoma, made headlines all over the nation. The following comes from CBS News. A large fire Saturday afternoon engulfed a natural gas plant in the small northern Oklahoma town of Medford. Video posted to social media showed heavy flames and smoke billowed hundreds of feet into the air. The fire occurred at a natural gas liquids fractionation facility operated by One OK, which I think is just a company. I don't know who it is.
I don't know either.
You can look it up. A company spokesperson confirmed to CBS News. And then there's another one. Just 2 days earlier was another mysterious explosion.
Completely mysterious.
Mysterious. It sounds like maybe the people who started the fires, possibly. I'm just thinking. Houston's just south of Oklahoma. It should be a trip
they just
up
drove a straight line.
I-35. Basically. Authorities say the fire is now out after an explosion along a natural gas line set up a column of flames from a field in Fort Bend County on Thursday. So that was last week.
It's all a coincidence. All this stuff burning up and the natural gas and food and they never know who did it.
But they blame it on random things like Bill Gates has. I was reading another article. Bill Gates has a food plant. Shocker, I know. But that went up in flames mysteriously, and they said it was an electrical fire in the van.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Then there was also a fire at a facility in Valdez, Alaska. A tanker truck caught fire
coincidence.
On the 27th of June. So
such a coincidence.
It's all
a couple of days or so.
Yeah. One big coincidence.
Wow.
One big coincidence, America.
Yes.
Yeah. I hope you guys are paying attention to all this, right? And
got to put the pieces together,
Right.
Yeah, you do. Right. And on an international level, you need to be praying. I mean, not just for our own government, and for our own, just your own local governments and state governments with the control that they have. But Yair Lapid, head of the Yesh Atid party, who was appointed the interim prime minister less than 1 month after Bennett's coalition dissolved, and he's going to remain in the post until elections in November, when they try to elect a new prime minister,
form a new government.
Right. His social agenda is anti-religious, and this guy, is going to do as much as he can until this election. And as he pushed for increased public transportation on Shabbat, instituting a civil marriage track in Israel, he criticized Netanyahu, the previous prime minister, for alienating alienating American Democrats and is suspicious of American evangelical support of Israel. That's us.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Israeli government completely identifies with the religious conservative evangelical faction of the Republican Party, he says, is dangerous, right? We just want them to not, we want them not to be made to give up their land. And as foreign minister under the last guy, Bennett, Lapid assured the Israeli public that while Bennett was PM, the two-state solution was off the table, and there would be no negotiations with the Palestinian Authority.
However.
Yes, that was a year ago, all right? However, on Sunday night, it was reported on the social media platform Telegram, I can't pronounce it, that the newly appointed Israeli Prime Minister, Lapid, has agreed to meetings to renew talks with the Palestinians to create a two-state solution. And he was being quoted from a phone conversation between him and the Egyptian president. And so a two-state solution would create an unprecedented Palestinian state inside Israel's borders that would be ethnically cleansed of Jews. If you go to Israel right now, there's nowhere Palestinians can be kept out of. But there's plenty of places where it says no Israelis allowed, and they can be killed going into these places. And so that's what would happen with its capital as Jerusalem, the Palestinian state. Even if the state is established with the Palestinian Authority in power, big deal. Hamas, the terrorist organization, currently commands the control over the Gaza. It took control over Gaza when the Palestinians were handed Gaza by the Bush administration. The recent revelation comes on the eve of President Biden's visit, and he's going to be there today. And remember, like we reported, Biden's administration reestablished relations with the Palestinian Authority that the Trump administration cut off. And so, Israel, you've got a pro-settlement organization called NGO Regavim launched a campaign aimed at Biden, warning him against negotiating the land of Israel. And it says, do not sell us out. Israel's security and their sovereignness or sovereignty aren't bargaining chips for you, Joe Biden. Jerusalem and Jordan Valley are Israel's most existential interest. Why? Well, we all know about Jerusalem, but the Jordan Valley, if they lose Judea and Samaria, they lose anybody that invades them from the east, okay?
Yeah.
They lose the high ground, all right? Like when in the 67 and 71 wars, Jordan had to go through this valley and up a hill. Israel's and sitting on top of a hill, it makes it really hard.
The high ground.
Yes, to take Israel.
Yeah.
And they're giving up the high ground, just like the Golan Heights is the high ground in the north. And so the Regavim released a statement imploring Biden, an interim Israeli Prime Minister Lapid, who is, I'm sorry, he's a doofus. They're saying avoid negotiating Judea and Samaria for personal gain, right? You guys doing it for personal gain, writing, Dear President Biden, don't exploit Israel's unstable political landscape by having this Lapid dude in there until November to extract historic concessions from an interim government that may be tempted to pay an enormously high price to shore up their election prospects. And Lapid, don't sell our nation interest for photo ops with visiting dignitaries who have agendas of their own. And Biden's the itinerary is skeptical. He's touring East Jerusalem without any Israeli presence, or accompaniment, right, which is really violation of U.S. law, Israeli law, diplomatic protocol. And what he's doing is he's solidifying Israeli agreement to a Palestinian Authority presence at the Allenby border crossing, signaling by doing this joint, there's that word again,
sovereignty,
and authority over our border, Israeli's border, and the succession of Israeli control, and what's the word again? Sovereignty over the Jordan Valley. And by doing this, he's making a point in official recognition of the upgraded status of the Palestinian Affairs Office, a de facto embassy to Palestine in West Jerusalem, with, like we reported, an eye towards opening a full embassy in East Jerusalem consular building, shut down by the Trump administration. And again, I'll repeat, Jordan Valley, along with Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria are vital existential interest for them, just on the defense end in regards to the Jordan Valley. And so this is why we pray, right? We got our president over there trying to push them to that direction to share their land, which, I'm afraid of the judgment would come. This is why you have to pray. Prayer works.
I'm raising my hand. Can I say one thing that I just found out about the current Prime Minister, Lapid? So you remember when the Russia-Ukraine war came and they were all pushing Zelensky and everybody was basically like, they kind of turned him to the women like, he's so hot, he's so great, everything's great about him. Well, I was looking to see if this guy was connected to the World Economic Forum and Reuters. Is what thank you, John. This is what their article headline says: from heartthrob to hot seat, Lapid to become Israeli prime minister. So this guy, is this a coincidence? He was a TV star, just like Zelensky. And here he is now the prime minister.
Well, we'll have to look him up
and
see if he's hot.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I haven't seen him. I mean,
they say heartthrob, chiseled.
Let me see this.
Does Jim think he's hot?
Could be. I'd
got potential.
I'd say he's a 6.5 to a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10. But listen, there's a lot going on, a lot to pray for, and we just we're going over I've got a time in my head, but you got China rioting with banks closed. There'll be more on this next week. Albania has overthrown their government, Sri Lanka.
That was interesting.
We want to hit you with this title. We'll pick up on this next week. Sri Lanka leading the way into the new world order. Wow. They have flipped their government also. So but remember, thank you so much for subscribing. The people that have, please do subscribe.
Yes.
You guys say this, I know you guys write in jokingly, but it helps us with the algorithm issue.
Yeah.
And
well, and sharing the videos and the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. People need to be informed. We need to be watchmen on the walls. I think our mission statement is in the opening. Mm-hmm. This is all we're doing. It's what we ought to be praying for, what we ought to be standing up for, what we ought to be aware of. Thank you so much for tuning into the Final Hour podcast. Yeah. We prayed for you again today. I pray for you every day. You are in my prayers, viewers, listeners, subscribers. God bless you. Thank you so much for turning on the Final Hour podcast. Yeah.